to you.
Better than I've been to myself.
Oh, he's been good to me. Yes,
Has he been good to you?
Oh, so good to me. But when I think about his
Has he
mercy,
been good to you? Yeah,
when I think about
better than I've been to
his
myself.
grace, I want to say
Has he been good
thank
to
you,
you?
Lord. Anybody want to say thank you, Lord?
He's been just that good. He's been just that good. He's been just that good. He's been He's been just that good.
Layla Hathaway, John Stoddard.
If you ever need me, I'll be here, ready to comfort and to cheer. And if you ever falter, ever fear, just whisper and I'll hear you loud and clear. If you ever need me, don't hesitate to call me. Don't hesitate to tell me what you're going through. I will leave you never. I'll be with you forever. If you ever need me, just call me. Call me. If you ever need me, I'll be here, ready to comfort and to cheer.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to go in and get started. If you would, join me for a moment of prayer. Eternal God, we thank you and we praise you, God, for your divine intervention in the midst of your creation. We pray, oh God, that this time together may be used to seek to serve you better here in the earth as we care one for another in our community. We pray, oh God, that you will have your way in the midst of this gathering, that all things will work together for good. In Jesus' name. For those that believe, amen. I'd like to introduce to you this evening's moderator, Attorney Allison Bracey. Allison Bracey is a local attorney who practices in the field of civil litigation. Mrs. Bracey is a longtime resident of Fontana and a graduate of Itawanda High School. She dedicates countless hours to community service efforts that include organizing legal clinics, teaching students about the Constitution, and advocating for legislative changes that bring access, transparency, and equity to our justice system. Mrs. Bracey also serves on the boards of the Center for Youth and Community Development, Cooperative Economic Empowerment Movement, CEEM, and Fontana Resources at Work. Mrs. Bracey is married to Jimmy, and they have 4 children. Please join me in welcoming Attorney Allison Bracey.
Good afternoon. Good evening, I guess. Now we can bring in the candidates. Good evening, candidates. My name is Allison Bracey, as you heard. I am a community member of the 2nd District, and I will be your moderator tonight. Let me provide you with a few ground rules so that we can have a productive, efficient, and respectful forum this evening. A series of questions has been prepared beforehand by the Planning Collaborative made up of the following partnering organizations: Bethel AME Church, which is where we are tonight, the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice, Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement, COPE, the Center for Youth and Community Development, the Inland Empire Black Workers Center, the Inland Empire Concerned African American Churches, the NAACP, Rethink Public Safety, the Sheet Metal Air Rail Transportation Union, and the Southern Fontana Concerned Citizens Coalition. Those are the organizations that came together to prepare the questions tonight. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement as part of their introductory remarks. Following your introductory statements, I will engage each candidate in a series of questions in which you will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. And if I need to ask any follow-up questions, you will be given 1 minute to give a follow-up answer. Okay, let me introduce our timekeeper, Michaela Tyus. She just waved there. Please pay close attention to her. She'll have the signs that give you the countdown of how much time you have left on your question and answer. Additionally, we are live streaming via Bethel AME Church's Facebook page and also on the YouTube channel and Zoom link provided by COPE. For those attending virtually, we will try to field a few questions from the chat feature at the end. Okay, so at this time, I will introduce our candidates. First, we have Luis Satina. Thank you. Jesse Armandaris is not here tonight. We also have Nadia Renner, Dejanay Shaw, and Eric Coker. Okay, and so now, starting with Nadia, can you just give us a 1-minute introduction?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your time and for being here with us today. I'm so excited to be here and share my time with you guys and you guys making the time to be here and hear all of us. I'm very appreciative. And I'm so excited to share my visions that I have as a supervisor. This is my second time running, so I see a lot of familiar faces from previously. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. Now turning to Dejanay Shaw. Tell us about yourself, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your night to be here with us. You could be anywhere. You decided to come here, so thank you for your time. My name is Dejanay Shaw, and it would be the honor of my lifetime to serve our district as our next county supervisor. I am a nurse and leader in my union, and I also run our union's legislation department. Through my work, we have worked with many great elected officials and some that weren't so great, some that are very out of touch with our community and don't understand our needs. It is my desire to bring equity and opportunity to all of us here and not just some of us. I am very excited for your questions tonight and look forward to connecting with each and every one of you.
Thank you. Now turning to Eric Coker.
They said all the good stuff. This is my first run. Like a lot of people, have just seen a lot of things I don't like. Been here. I graduated from Altima High School. My kids graduated from Altima High School. Been here for a long time, and it's just seems like we could do better. Things keep getting worse, and so I think I have some good ideas, to see what happens out here. But it's a pretty good turnout for what it is. But it's my first thing at all in public at all, so it's this is all new to me. Glad you all came.
Thank you. And last but not least, Luis Satina.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for the invitation to come down here and to interact with all of you and learn from the community and the needs. My name is Luis Satina. I'm a married man. I have 6 kids. I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona in civil engineering, the EOP program. 35 years, been working for the Metropolitan Water District. I'm vice president of the board of the Cucamonga Valley Water District. We service portions of Fontana, all of Rancho, and a portion of Upland. I'm also a board member on Foothill Family Shelter, Transitional Homeless Shelter. I've been doing that for a number of years. And I'm vice chair of the Chamber of Commerce. Small business is critical. Why am I running for county board supervisor? Well, I guess I've been running for 16 months. I started running in January of last year. And I'm very proud to report that I've received 475 contributions. 2/3 of those contributions are people who live in this district. And we've been running since this was a $60,000 one single 4-year term, because it's about serving. My wife and I prayed about it, and we said, let's do it. And people said, Luis, are you crazy? No, God has given me much. The parable of the talents. Got to put them back into use. And I'm glad to be here, and as we move along, I want to share with you a letter before you leave and some of my mailers. This is a grassroots community campaigns, as you'll learn. We are really ready to serve at the next level and many facets of my life, and I've done detention ministry when I was in my 20s and coached AYSO soccer for 8 years. And I've seen a lot of the impacts in our society and some of the things that need to be said and the importance of the community. And from the homeless perspective, I just don't talk about it, I do it. So I thank you for the opportunity and look forward to engaging in discussion as we move along.
Thank you, Mr. Satina. Okay, so let's turn to the questions. The first questions fall under the topic of public safety. The first question is, how would you define public safety and what are your priorities? Starting with Ms. Renner.
Public safety is so important to me. I have a small boutique on Citrus and Foothill right here in Fontana, 2nd District. And I deal with a lot of homelessness, but also mental health homelessness. And it has been such an experience to open a small business 7 months before COVID and deal with situations where sometimes they could be very scary for not just myself, but for my customer. And public safety is very important to me after having these different experiences. We have to work together to work with public safety so we could be in a safer neighborhood, not just a neighborhood, but a small business. It's very concerning to have women come into my clothing store and not feel safe, or myself as the owner not feeling safe. This has to be something that we have to work together to build and really build a relationship with public safety, not just has that happened to me. My car has been stolen in front of my own house. So I think it's something that's very important, and I think that we have to take a lot of time to really figure out how we can create public safety where we feel in a safe environment, not just when we're shopping, but in our own homes. So I believe that public safety is very instrumental to me if I were to be elected. I think that we have to really look out for each other. And I understand homelessness, I understand mental health, but there has to be different ways that we can work together to create a positive environment, not just for the people, but also for our children when they're out in the streets.
Thank you. And Candidate Shaw, just to remind you of the question, how do you define public safety and what are your priorities?
Thank you for the question. Public safety is multifaceted. I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't want to grow up or live in an environment that is safe. We want our neighborhoods to be safe. We want our children to be able to play in areas that are safe. But we also have to think about the other facets of public safety, and that encompasses those who are drug addicted and mentally ill, in the manner in which those folks who are suffering in that way are treated. We know that poverty is often criminalized, those who are homeless, drug addicted, and mentally ill. So how are we tackling it from a public safety standpoint? Who are we partnering with? Who are the stakeholders in our communities? Are we doing what we can to engage these people to make sure that we have a thorough lens as to what is actually transpiring in our communities? As a nurse for over 10 years in this county, I have seen firsthand the inequities in the system. My mother and twin sisters suffer from drug addiction and mental health issues, and my family and I have fought for years to give them their voice back. And it's because of my firsthand experience with them that I see the inequities that we have here in our county. There just aren't real, tangible resources. Poverty is often criminalized, and we see people go in and out of the jail system. Recidivism is high because people are not getting the help that they need once they become incarcerated. There's a big difference in a person going to jail and not receiving the types of mental health treatment that they need. Is a person actually experiencing a mental health crisis, or is the behavior that they are currently exhibiting exacerbated because of drug usage? Those are two different things. We have to give those who are trained in the profession of mental health, our therapists and our psychiatrists, the opportunity to actually handle that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now moving to Mr. Candidate Coker. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I got it.
Okay.
So, yeah, there needs to be, I mean, we closed down all the, well, not all of them, but a lot of the mental health facilities got closed down years back. They never reopened. There's no place to help these people, and that's part of the problem is there's no place for them to go. They go to jail and they're let out because there's no secondary place to take them. To where they can get help. Are they drug addicted? Do they actually have mental health problems? And I kind of envision like a big warehouse, if you will, that actually is like a city inside where they can go, and it's not like they're being in jail, but they're being monitored. And these are people like talking to themselves on the street. I mean, you obviously they're not taking care of themselves. I know that I'm not saying we should put everybody into a big building and just keep them there, but I mean, they should get a place they can go to get the help and hopefully get out with, there'd be everything there. There'd be training, there'd be mental health facilities, there'd be drug addiction facilities, all be in a giant, like, you've seen them in other, like Sweden has like places for people with Alzheimer's. It's like a whole village. It makes them feel like they're still at home, but really they're under care. That's kind of a out there crazy idea, I'm sure, but it could work, right? It'd be a very large facility. Rather than just having no place and they just constantly in and out until sometimes, people get stabbed in the neck just walking down the street in LA, or you hear the stories. There should be some help for these people. They shouldn't just be, out there. But yeah, so safety is everyone's first priority. Everyone wants to be safe. And we'd work with the different facilities and places that could offer that support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Satina?
I will take you up on the offer.
Okay. How do you define public safety and what are your priorities?
You know, I fully support the police, law enforcement, but I also believe that public safety should be a collaborative relationship between the police department and the community, where the police department itself is more engaged in the community. When I was a kid, cops would walk the beat, and we interacted with them. And what is that? Why is that important? Because by doing that, the police officers will get to know people on the streets who are signaling. There are many signals that people give off prior to situations occurring. And you build a relationship with not only the community, because you're engaged in various events, but you also start to understand the people who are out in the community who need help the most. And you engage them before an incident occurs. I have a good friend by the name of Ryan Berryman, who is the executive director of the San Bernardino Fatherhood Initiative. And I mentioned earlier, when I was in my late 20s and early 30s, I did detention ministry at Eastlake Juvenile Hall in Los Angeles. And I've coached AYSO soccer for many years. I can't tell you how many times when I worked in my detention ministry service, I drew the conclusion that many of those boys never had a father figure. In addition to that, as an AYSO soccer coach, I always saw some little boy being very nervous before the game started. I said, why are you so nervous? And you know what he was doing? He was waiting for his dad to show up. Who helps these young men? The police officer builds a relationship and understands them, and also the homeless people. And they know, they can identify who needs help and what different facets of help: mental help, drug addiction, or any other form of help. And so that is a relationship, and those are some of the things that I want to focus on, and there are other ideas how I want to address them, but I'm running out of time.
Thank you. Now, some of you kind of touched on some of the initiatives that you would try to put forth in the area of public safety. And so our next question is, what is your plan to ensure public safety initiatives prioritize mental health services, rehabilitation, youth programs, and other supports for the houseless community members in our district? I'll start with Mr. Coker.
Okay, well, I know in my church I'm part of the youth group, the young men's group. So, I mean, obviously, church is a good place to start with that. Boys don't have fathers, that kind of thing. The church fills that void a lot of times. What was the actual question again?
What is your plan to ensure public safety initiatives will prioritize mental health services, rehabilitation, youth programs, and other supports for the houseless community members in our district?
Working with those facilities, the sheriff's department, local police departments. I mean, all those guys are the first point of contact a lot of times. So they need to have proper training, obviously, and then we need to, again, back to that, we need a place to these people to take them to get the help. We don't seem to have that, and I think that's what's really missing. Is there's always community involvement. There's all kinds of church-like things. There's a lot of different groups and that facilitate that kind of stuff. But it's the help is really lacking, and I would like to really focus on some sort of a collaborative effort with anybody who would want to put into that. It's going to take a lot of different again, you got counselors, you got sociologists, psychologists, you got drug addiction specialists, you got all these different people. There needs to be a place where they can go to get that help, and that would, I think, really help. Those are the biggest problems, anyways. I think is that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Shaw.
Thank you for the question. This is a very complex issue, and I know a lot of times when you're running for office, folks look to you for new initiatives, right, and things to implement into the community. And one thing I know for certain for working as a nurse for over 10 years in this county, mental health, there is a huge stigma around it. We just don't talk about it. In my family, we didn't speak about it for years, and it wasn't until the past few years that we became more open in speaking about mental health and how it affects us. And people need to know that it's okay to not be okay. That's number one. Number two, when we talk about those who are homeless, drug addicted, and mentally ill, we know that those who are suffering it's often criminalized. We need to ensure that our police officers are tackling crime, and those who are suffering from drug addiction and mental health, they don't need to be interacting solely with police officers. They need to be paired up with those who are trained to do the work, psychiatrists and therapists. And there is a shortage of that. There's a workforce shortage. There's a shortage in the hospital that I work at. There just aren't enough therapists. There just aren't enough psychiatrists. So I envision creating a program similar to one that is located in Hennepin County, in which they have connected psychiatrists and therapists with police officers. They work in tandem with them because sometimes situations can escalate. But the first person that someone who is homeless or drug addicted or mentally ill comes in contact with is someone that understands their issues, someone that has been trained to do the work, a psychiatrist or a therapist. And those are the people that we need to lead those efforts. So I'm gonna do my best to ensure that we create programs like that to make sure that those who are suffering are getting the help that they deserve.
Thank you. Okay, moving to candidate Satina.
Well, thank you. Will you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. What is your plan to ensure public safety initiatives will prioritize mental health services, rehabilitation, youth programs, and other supports for the houseless individuals in our community?
Thank you. You know, Proposition 47, mental health was for those who were in the system, incarcerated in the system, would get mental health assistance under Prop 40, when Prop 47 was not passed. We need to reinstate that, not on the outside to help people, like I said earlier. Foothill Family Shelter, when somebody comes in, a social worker does an assessment, and we do offer folks counseling. And they stay in the counseling program, and there's financial literacy programs, there's parenting programs, anger management. But we looked at it from a holistic perspective to help somebody get back on their feet. And we have many success stories. What I want to do as your county board supervisor, I want to work with the youth along with our schools. Youth programs, young people need jobs. They need jobs. And a job is also important for them from a volunteer perspective. When you put yourself in somebody else's situation, you're helping them out, that's when you realize how fortunate you are and you feel accomplished. Incremental accomplishment in someone's life leads them to greater accomplishment down the road. New York has a tremendous program called the Ready, Willing, and Able program, and where people get incremental accomplishment and they're held accountable. We need to help people reach accomplishments, young people with the schools, so that they can go through in the schools, the counselors can identify those kids that we can get engaged in volunteer programs and in entry-level job programs. I want to work in terms of the homeless. There's transitional homelessness and there's chronic homelessness. A major element of the chronic homelessness are the youth that age out of the foster program. And they become very susceptible to drug addiction when they have no place to go. So I want to work to provide the same model, the same template that we've got at Foothill Family Shelter, a faith-based, private-public entity to create housing for foster youth so we can help them as they transition into their lives at a community college or a four-year degree program.
Thank you. Now moving to Ms. Renner.
I would like you to repeat the question, please.
Sure. What is your plan to ensure public safety initiatives will prioritize mental health services, rehabilitation, youth programs, and other supports for the houseless individuals in our district?
As I mentioned, I think that we have to build a relationship with Public Safety 1 because we have to be in communication. Communication is so important. When you listen to a problem, you understand what the problem is, and then you have to get creative to bring a solution. Human Services in the county is the largest operational group within the county with requirements of totaling $2.6 billion. This includes mental health and homelessness services right now. That's the last stat I checked. and I share that the $2.6 billion because as a business owner, as a business person, you have to understand what is happening with the money that we are having in our county. Where is it going? Are those programs already available? And if they are they effective? And if they're not, let's bring something new that's gonna be workable for our community. We can't just keep saying that we're gonna that we need more money. The money's there, $2.6 billion. What are we doing with that type of money? Like I said, from a business perspective, we gotta really check. As a small business, if I'm not making money, I don't have money coming from the tree, so I gotta get creative. And I think that this is where you have to get creative. I believe that this is where you have to say, if we have these programs and we still have the same problem, we have to come up with a better solution. We have to come up with different ways to take care of the $2.6 billion and see where they're going and really put it to work. If you told me that the biggest operation group is human services and includes mental health and homelessness service, and there's a $2.6 billion, that my neighborhood doesn't tell me that, doesn't show me that, because I see them in every corner. So there's something wrong here when we have that type of budget and I still see what I see, especially in front of my business on a regular basis. I call the cops on a regular basis. That's where we have to create that relationship with public safety, not just to say, oh, you're gonna go to jail for that first 8 hours and then you're gonna come back and you're gonna come back to the same corner and we're gonna have the same problem. That's just a Band-Aid. We have to really put in place programs when you have that type of money in placement.
Thank you, and that's actually a great segue into our next question, which is on the topic of economics. The question is, how will you allocate funds earmarked for the houseless, given the fact that there's so many different diverse economic levels in the various portions of the district? Ms. Renner, you can start with that question.
I think it's very important, and I'm gonna probably sound a little bit reluctant with what I'm saying, but it's taking inventory on what we have and what we need. You know, there's programs like, for example, SWAG that the county has put out, and there's a particular young homeless person that hangs out in front of my store, and he's only 29 years old. And I took the time to listen, because that's what I do. Before I opened my store, I used to do radio, and I used to go out and do interviews, and I used to interview everybody in the county. And one of the biggest things that I did was listen. So I asked him, what were the situations, why wasn't he looking for help? The help that he claimed that they were giving him, like the program SWAG, he said that he didn't want to be part of it because he didn't feel like that was the real help that they were providing. He felt like he was just another number just to get money, so the county can get money. He didn't feel like it was the exact help. So when you take time to listen to the people that are actually being affected by these situations, then that's when you're gonna understand why they're not getting with these programs. Why is it that we're still having the same issue? The money's there, the programs are there, and it goes back to what I said, we have to take inventory. What is there, what is not working, and what's not working, we have to change it up, especially when there is money there and we're not using it correctly, and especially when we're not asking the people that we want to get help what the situation is. Why are they not doing that? We have to take the time to listen. When you start listening to issues, like when I started listening and interviewing people when I was doing radio, that's what made me be here today, because I knew that there was no representation into what we want as a community. This is not about separating. This is how we can come together to make changes, and what's working and what's not working for us.
Thank you. Candidate Shaw?
Thank you for the question. In order to properly allocate funding, you have to understand where we've been to have a vision of where we're going to go. And that means, where has the money been spent previously? Who's getting what organizations are already doing the work? Who has a proven track record in ensuring that those who are homeless are actually getting the help that they need? And this is a very complex issue, and we know that building shelters are just not enough. What good is a shelter if you don't have someone there to do the intake process, to actually analyze someone's mental health status? What good is that? Or what good is a shelter if you don't have resources to get people off of the drugs that they're on, right? What good is a shelter if you do not connect with the stakeholders in the community that provide true wraparound services, retraining our workforce, right? Upskilling our workforce, providing them with the opportunities and the resources that they need to stand on their own 2 feet. There are so many people within our county that need real help. And as a leader within my union and understanding labor issues, we need good paying jobs. And all of us need it. Those who are homeless need it too. They're somebody's mother, somebody's father, somebody's sister. They are worthy and deserving of every opportunity, and we need to do all that we can to make that come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coker?
The question one more time?
How will you allocate funds earmarked for the houseless, given the diverse economic levels in the various parts of the district?
Okay, yeah, well, that's the problem. There's so many different scenarios where, everyone has a different problem. Certainly, there's some success stories out there. Some of the programs must be working, at least on some level. So we need to figure out where those are, which ones are working, which ones aren't working, figure out why they're not working. And again, maybe interviews with the people who are being serviced. But certainly, we need to track down where the money's going and go with what's working and try to get rid of what's not working or fix it, one or the other. And then new programs, new initiatives, and there's got to be, think outside the box. There's got to be a better way to do things. Maybe some more meetings with the different groups that aren't working, get them together, and try to figure out what's another alternative that we're missing. There's got to be something we're missing, because it's been a long time and things aren't getting better; they're getting worse, actually. So it appears to be, anyways, when you drive down the freeways and stuff. So there's got to be a solution somewhere, and we just got to find it, and then fund that solution, or reallocate funds to where it would we can try some new things and keep doing the things that are working, but try some new things as well that maybe have a better success. Those are my ideas, anyways. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Satina?
Thank you very much. If you read the paper last week or 2 weeks ago, in the paper I was asked, what would I do from a homeless perspective? I would audit the departments to see the metrics of accomplishments in terms of getting people off the streets. We need to audit these programs and hold the administrators accountable, because we're holding people accountable to accomplishments, okay? So that's important. I would audit the departments to see how they're satisfying. How would I create housing, rental, and home ownership? Public lands. Public lands. We have public lands in the county that we can use. CEQA compliance, CEQA clearance. If we're going to do a CEQA clearance for a basketball stadium, we sure can do a CEQA clearance for housing for people, for rental and home ownership, right? All right. The other thing, too, is I have been to Sacramento. I have been to Washington, D.C. to advocate and lobby for money for major water projects. I sure will do that for housing. There's a lot of money right now, $1.2 trillion, the infrastructure bill. That discussion on that issue, that train left the station. My job is to go get that money for my constituents, and I will do that, and I've done it in the past. What is another thing that I would love to do? A public housing trust fund that developers will pay into. It's a mitigation credit, and you pay into it. You use that public trust house fund along with public lands that lowers the cost, a CEQA clearance, and you create programs for rental for people and housing. And you know what? I would more than gladly to put a 40-year mortgage on someone that's affordable. It's attainable. And from a rent perspective, there's a subsidy that can help them. I stand on the shoulders of my father and my uncle who came here to America as immigrants, braceros, to work in the field. My kids are going to stand on my shoulders. Little by little, we help each other, and we just got to plant the first seed. And I've been doing this. I'm going to continue doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Just piggybacking off of your statement, Mr. Satina, as you've seen recently, the state has had considerable difficulties in enforcing some of these affordable housing laws, the new laws that are designed to increase affordable housing. As it relates to those efforts, are you a yes in my backyard advocate, and if so, what are you going to do about the supervisors who don't want it in their backyard?
Well, like I said, I'm going to try to find the most affordable way to do this. And if I've got a piece of land that the county owns, I'm going to consider putting it there regardless where it's at, right? In addition to that, if somebody wants to donate some land, we need to address this issue. We all live in here collectively. And so if the land is going to be in the northern part of, let's say, Altaloma, it's going to be very expensive, right? So it's an issue of economics. But I live in the middle of the city of Rancho Cucamonga, right? So I love where I live, right? Because I'm neither here nor there, and I keep my kids hungry. Wherever we can build this, I mean, we need to get these people off the streets, and we need to put people. You know, I always tell people, when you see somebody on the street and they're living on the street, that's a life, that's a human life, and we're not only affecting that human, we're affecting ourselves. Because we're becoming desensitized to this, and so are our kids. And so the answer to your question is, I'm going to do whatever I can to get people in a home. I don't like kids sleeping in cars, and that's what Foothill Family Shelter is about. We're a transitional homeless shelter for families with children, because no child should sleep in a car but a warm bed. And I'm going to do whatever I can, sincerely.
Thank you. Dejanay? Oh, sorry. Candidate Shaw?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. The state has had considerable difficulties enforcing some of the new laws surrounding affordable housing. They've gotten a lot of pushback from some cities. As it relates to those efforts, are you a yes in my backyard advocate? And if so, how will you work with the supervisors who don't want it in their backyard?
There are a lot of people who are not in my backyard type of person, and no one wants to address a problem until it's knocking at their front door. And I think homelessness is a great example of that. It started in a certain part of our county, and it was okay when it was over there, but now that it's moved west and it's affecting everybody, now all of a sudden we want to come up with tangible solutions to eradicate it. We cannot make that same mistake with housing. We have to do all that we can to bring state and federal funding here to the Inland Empire. Every single dollar should be utilized to ensure that people can have a home, and not just rent, but affordable home ownership. What are we really doing? It is our responsibility to ensure that we are giving people the tools that they need to be successful so they can stand on their own 2 feet. There are great developers that have a track record of actually building fruitful developments for our communities. We need to. Thank you. I think I'm okay. Thank you. There are great developers that have a track record of building fruitful developments in our communities. We need to continue to work with those folks and also explore other avenues of how we are going to bring more homes to our areas. But more so, I think we need to tackle the root cause of it all, and it's the fact that people can't afford to live here. We don't have good paying jobs. That is the root of poverty in our communities, lack of opportunity. And what are we doing about it? We need to ensure that we are bringing great companies to the Inland Empire, investing in tech and incubator programs. We have a flourishing tech space here in the Inland Empire. All of our talent continues to leave outside the Inland Empire to go to neighboring counties and states because they don't have the resources here. The Inland Empire, San Bernardino County, is the largest county landmass-wise. There is so much growth and opportunity here, and we need to do all that we can and think larger and think greater to create opportunities so that people can plant their roots here. Thank you.
Candidate Coker? Apologies.
Please.
The state has had considerable difficulties enforcing some of the new affordable housing laws. As it relates to you, are you a yes in my backyard advocate? And if so, how will you work with the other supervisors who don't want it in their backyard?
Yeah, there's plenty of land in San Bernardino County, and I guess the problem is where you're going to put it. They would accept it, but it's still close enough to where the homeless people are going to want to go there. And you can't put it out in the middle of the desert somewhere, like literally in the middle of nowhere, even though there's those places there. But so there's got to be a place that they would accept. I mean, there's a way to work through everything. But yeah, I mean, and the bigger thing is jobs in the valley. I mean, Amron closed down, steel mills have closed down, Ashley Furniture Plant closed down. I mean, all these, we lost, hundreds of jobs just recently, the last couple of years. And no one seems to be bringing those back anytime soon. I mean, Topgolf opened up, and that's good. But yeah, definitely more middle-class jobs. I mean, you can go to school and have a great, you can teach these kids welding and all these things, and there's no place to do that, really. The steel plant's closed down. The steel mills are closed down. I'd say fire them back up, but that's probably a pipe dream there. I think bring industry back huge, and supply jobs for, a lot of it is there's no jobs. So, kids get into other things, people get into other things when there's nothing to do. So that's a big part of it. But there's always a solution. I mean, I'm sure if everyone sits down, we could find a place they would agree on that's suitable to all the different agencies that need to be involved in that location. Or locations. There's maybe more than one. There's too many people for one location. So I'm just a believer that everything can be fixed through talking, get it hammered out, get it done. And I'd be that advocate to push for that. It's time. You can't keep putting it off. It's got to be in someone's backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Shaw, this kind of goes to the comments you just made about opportunities within the district. The question is, what will you do to incentivize economic growth from a marketing standpoint to not only spur employment, but also business growth? And how will you address the problem of the shrunken labor pool?
Thank you for the question. We definitely have a shrunken labor pool. We have a reduced workforce, and not just here in San Bernardino County, but that's nationwide. But we also have a problem with we also have a problem with people not being trained in the manner that they should be. This is a great opportunity for us to retrain and upskill our workforce. Coming from labor, there are great workforce development centers. There's the Black Workers Resource Center that actually has tangible plans to retrain our workforce and to upskill our workforce. College is great, but it's not for everybody. And it's okay for us to understand that and acknowledge it. And we should be giving people the tools that they need to be successful. And that means introducing them to other ways and pathways to success. Construction trades are very important. They provide great prevailing wages. They provide good benefits. And they provide an opportunity for people to live a life that they deserve. So connecting with our trade unions is something that is a place where I would start. It's work I'm already doing right now as a proud steel worker, and it's something that we need to connect with folks on our school boards, folks that are within the community, so that people can understand the resources that are available to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Renner, I think I skipped you on the last question. I'm so sorry.
I just didn't want to cut you off, but it's okay.
Would you like me to read the last question as well?
Absolutely,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
So it was about affordable housing and some of the pushback that the state's been getting regarding their new laws on that issue. As it relates to those efforts, are you a yes in my backyard advocate? And if so, how will you work with the supervisors who take the not in my backyard approach?
So there's a few things to this question. There's other states that already created successful communities to house and have affordable living with approximately $30,000 per unit. Here we build Wilmington Grove and Lillian Court, which are affordable housings, at a $66.9 million project cost. That comes up to $557,000 per unit compared to being able to build a unit for $30,000. So we also have to question, what are the developers' interests in our county? Why are we also letting developers just build without understanding that we have to live in this community? They come, they build, they go wherever they do, and whatever money they get. That's great, fantastic, but that's not, that we have an issue here. that if you build and we can't afford, we're gonna have more homeless. Our problem is gonna grow a lot more. So first of all, we gotta take that into consideration. The numbers that I just shared with you guys, the $66.9 million for projects. And the way that those projects work is that there was a lottery, right? I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's a lottery. So then the developer gets to pick who lives in this building that they just built, because whether they're investors or not. I don't personally know that. However, those are the things that we have to check as community people that live here. The second part of this question, other than knowing what the developer interest is, because we have to think long-term, it's also communication with my community, with the second district. I'm here to work for you. I am not here to do anything else but to represent what my people want in the second district. This means that there has to be a communication. Working in radio, when I went to interview, people said they didn't feel like they were heard. Board of Supervisors meetings are held at 10 in the morning every other Tuesday. I know that if I have a 9-to-5 job, I'm not going to something like that, so I can voice my opinion. So those are very important elements that we have to take into consideration to definitely do these type of things and have a better understanding what we're doing, where our money is going. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, with respect to the question on economics, what will you do to incentivize economic growth from a marketing perspective to spur employment and business growth? And how will you address the problem of the shrunken workforce?
Employment is very important. I support a lot of small businesses like mine because we're able to employ the youth. When you're going to high school, when you're going to college, that's where your discipline begins. I started working at 15 as soon as I was able to get a work permit, because I wanted to provide for myself as much as I could. Thank God for my parents that provided me with a home, but I also wanted to be part of my success. And not just that, but here, we outsource a lot of our jobs. There's a lot of creative people in our county. There's a lot of talent here. I don't know why we're going out of our county to other counties to provide jobs when we have the talent here. It's time to take our power back. It's time for us to work for ourselves and show that we are talented people, that we don't have to outsource. If anything, they should be able to come here and outsource and ask for our help, how we did the change, how we made a difference. So one of the things is that we are not outsourcing jobs. That's one of the main things. Another thing is warehouses. Warehouses are not the best paying jobs. I interviewed these people that work there. The job condition is not healthy. There's some warehouses where there's no AC. You have to drink water every 15 hours to stay hydrated. These are important things that we have to take into consideration. The return rate on warehouses is 90%. That means that they're only working a small amount of time up until they find their next job. Is that a good job? No, I don't think so. I really don't. But I think that we could work together to figure out how we're gonna build these small businesses, how we're gonna create different jobs here where we're not outsourcing them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was very passionate about that, sorry.
Mr. Coker?
The question exactly one more time?
What will you do to incentivize economic growth from a marketing standpoint, not only to spur employment, but also business growth? And how will you also address the problem of the shrunken labor pool?
The problem isn't so much San Bernardino County as it is the state, the mandates, AQMD, EPA. They shut stuff down. I mean, it makes too much dust. Got to get rid of it. It makes too much noise. Got to get rid of it. It makes for a little bit cleaner air, but it's horrible for jobs and any kind of industry. Anything that I've got people that have machine shops out here, and they're making them, and it's water-based cutting fluids. It's not even oil, but it used to be oil-based. Everything's water-based. AQMD comes through, EPA, whoever it is, and they make them put like a water collection facility, tens of thousands of dollars to collect the rainwater off their roof. It's water-based to begin with. It's just a way to create a fine if you don't do it, or shut you down if you don't, whatever. It's everything that government seems to want to do is find a way to fine, inhibit, hinder, harass current businesses we have. It makes it hard to stay. That's why people are leaving California. And it's not so much the county, it's the state that we're mandated to do so much crap by the state. There's no autonomy. There's no autonomy from county to county. We all do the same things. There's nobody trying something different. There's nobody, it's just every county's different. Different needs, different people, different demographics. And we're all forced to do the same thing by the state, and that's the biggest problem. Is we need to work with the state to say, look, you guys gotta pull back on the reins or let the reins go a little bit, and so we can actually get some stuff done and get some business back in here. We used to make things. We don't make things anymore in America. It's bizarre that now China makes everything. The pollution didn't go away. It's just someplace else. It's still in the exact same amount of pollution, probably more because their controls are less than ours. We've got to get back to doing American things and building things and making things. We can make our own toasters, vacuum cleaners. We could do all that here. We just don't because it makes too much pollution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Satina?
Thank you. One of the things that we need to do is we need to lend an assurance to any major corporation who's going to anchor here, make a major investment, that we're going to have, one, a pro-business climate and culture, and two, more importantly than that we're going to have enough water and electrical power for them to make that investment. We are the largest county in America, vast resources in our desert, but yet we're going to have power shutoffs in the summer. And right now, as you hear, we're having limited water supply. I've been working on water for many years. The state of California has failed us in terms of water reliability. We have to look within ourselves, come up with a plan, because we do have abilities to come up with a plan within ourselves to create a utility portfolio for our own county. That is important because then major corporations will have the assurance to invest. When you have major corporations, you'll have mid-sized corporations, and then you'll have storefront corporations. And that means revenue, tax-based revenue. The workforce. We need to get federal funding and state funding to accelerate the co-ops between community colleges and high schools to prepare the youth for jobs. And that means that you target the type of jobs that the businesses that are coming in are going to be, the workforce that they're going to be looking for. The county has a decent vision plan, but it lacks the ability to promote it. It needs to champion that plan in competitiveness to Orange County and Los Angeles County. We need to create the jobs for our people to be here and not have to drive 30, 40 miles to work. And we have to compare ourselves. We provide the American dream. You can still buy a house in San Bernardino, even though expensive, but there's areas where you can. You can still create the American dream in San Bernardino. We have to fight with the bully pulpit to remove some of those regulations that block our businesses' opportunities. But most importantly, we've got to promote ourselves. Our vision plan, we've got to carry it out there and encourage it. Major international airport, learning institutions, and hospitals, we should be drawing people into our county.
Thank you. Our next questions are on the topic of housing, and we've talked a little bit about housing already. But on March 31st, 2022, the California legislature approved AB 2179, extending the state's eviction moratorium through June 30th of this year for certain tenants who have applied for rental assistance on or before March 31st. The eviction cliff will impact thousands of people already pending rental assistance, not including an upwards of 5,000 people already facing eviction. If elected, tell us, how would you work with the other county supervisors as well as city leaders to prevent mass housing displacement? Okay, and we'll start with Mr. Coker.
Yeah, that's a tough one because most of the housing is private, and you're just asking those people to keep suffering, not getting rent. There's no good answer off the top of my head for sure. It hurts everyone to keep going and having people not pay rent, because someone has to pay that rent. The bank's not forgiving it. It's they're just not having to pay it. The bank still wants to collect it. I don't think there's been any bank forgiveness. If any, it's been minimal. So the payments have to be made, and it's just a burden on the people who own the homes or the apartments, whatever. I don't know how long you can keep allowing that and call it okay. I don't have any rental properties, but if I did, I couldn't imagine. I'd probably have already lost them. I mean, I don't make enough money to pay 3 or 4 mortgages. Certainly. So I can't imagine being on the other side of that. At the same time, yeah, we don't want to throw a bunch of people out in the street either. But the government can't keep paying for everybody's, it's not paying for it now. There's just, no one's paying for it. And I think things just have to fall where they fall at some point. I paid my mortgage all the way through everything. I don't know, not everybody can, but I think a lot of people took advantage of it. So that was another issue, was who really needed it versus who got it. A lot of people are still working and collecting the money. Yeah, I don't know. I'd work with them, but that's a tough one.
Thank you. Ms. Ritter?
Can you please repeat the question for me, please?
How would you work with the other county supervisors as well as city leaders to prevent mass housing displacement?
And there's a deadline from what your previous statement was, correct?
The moratorium will end June 30th of this year.
The first thing that I can think of, because it's a great question, I would ask for an extension. The extension should be just to be able to come up with a game plan. And the game plan will consist of asking the people that are in these homes what the situation is, because you have to understand what the problem is to create a solution. So you have to ask, I would A, ask for an extension, B, ask how we can create, whether it's them getting back on their feet and getting a job, or doing different type of payment method. At least it's not a serial thing that they're not providing, but definitely extension, communication, and game plan to then come up with a solution where it benefits everybody, because we cannot afford more homelessness. That's just not the right thing to do at all. So definitely an extension, and create a plan, and the plan will be created by communicating to see what the solution can be. When we work together, we come up with good solutions. The problem here is that we're not listening to the people that are living these situations. So when we listen, we understand where they're coming from, and we could get creative and create a solution for that. That's the best thing that I could think of, because that's how I understood every time I went out to interviews. When I heard something, I was like, you know what? Nobody's heard you, because you don't have the voice. You're not able to go to these meetings or the council meetings. Everybody has to provide for their families, have to do dinner and that type of stuff. But when you really do the work yourself and you go out to ask for the questions, then you get a better answer, to get a better solution. They can't just come to you. You gotta go get it. That would be the way that I would do it, but definitely an extension, because we can't afford homelessness, a higher rate here. It's already 20% higher every year. We can't afford that.
Thank you. Mr. Satina?
Thank you very much. All right, so this is a outside-the-box problem, right? We never imagined this situation happening, but this is going to require an outside-the-box solution. And so this lends us the opportunity to do something different that other people will say, well, it's not part of the rules. I don't care about the rules. I got to address the problem. I said before that I want to audit the homeless programs. Once I audit the homeless programs, I know what resources I have available to address this issue. Believe it or not, Foothill Family Shelter, sometimes there was a disconnect between us and the County of Los Angeles and San Bernardino in terms of clients. And so we need to streamline that communication, because there are people who need help and they just not get sent to the right location. So I'm going to streamline that. And I also think that we're going to have to look at this from a case-by-case basis, a needs assessment, on employment. You got to prove to me that you've been looking for a job. And if you're trying to look for a job, I'm going to do everything possible to help you. But I also think that it's time that we, outside the box, we reincorporate the faith-based community. There is no such thing as separation of church and state. None. The faith-based community has been coming to the rescue in many, many ways throughout America in disasters. And so what I'm talking about is, like we do at Foothill Family Shelter, I said it's private, public, and faith-based. And so just this morning I read an article that our homeless population has come down to about 3,000. If I'm not mistaken, was in the article. And so someone else said that there's 200 churches throughout San Bernardino County. And so I think we can come up with a solution to address the majority of the problem, right? We're not going to be able to address all of it, but I kid you not. We need to find the resources within ourselves. They're there, resources on a state level, and streamline the housing development for this assistance. I got to come back to this again. We have got to use the county, the bully pulpit of the county, to streamline the construction of housing on public lands with the public housing trust to realize these objectives sooner than later for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Shaw, would you like me to read the question again?
No, that will be necessary. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think it's insensitive to say that folks have been able to pay their rent since the inception of this pandemic. Now we are in an endemic phase. As a nurse, I was very fortunate to be able to go to work every single day, and I never had to worry about missing any of my bills because I was a frontline worker, right? I was essential. But what about those who weren't essential? So many people lost their livelihoods overnight. Overnight. And the unfortunate reality is that most of us in here are one paycheck away from being homeless ourselves. That's the reality. People are hurting in this community. They are hurting. And we need to do all that we can to make sure that we are bringing every resource available to help folks. Unfortunately, the county fumbled and they returned millions of dollars in COVID relief, money that could have been utilized to keep people in their homes. Why are we giving back money when we need it here? Tell me why. We need people to advocate for everybody in this county and not just some of us. And when I say the money was returned, that money could have been utilized to pay those who own the property, to help those while they go through their needs assessment to see what else we can give them. My grandma always says it takes a village. We are that village. We must do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's turn to environmental justice. Will you support a warehouse moratorium or general plan amendment to pause new warehouse development until a proper cumulative impact and health risk assessment study is conducted to determine the health and safety impacts before approving future development? Let's start with Mr. Satina.
You know, it's an easy one for me because the city of Rancho Cucamonga put a pause on building warehouses until they identified the appropriate locations. And it made sense. You know, I'm not opposed to development, but I'm not gonna allow indiscriminate development. It has to be a win-win. And you can't put warehouses next to schools and churches and parks. There's a right place for things in a community because it has to work for everyone. And so I think I answered your question, right?
Yes.
But you know, you shouldn't be getting credit for having someone fix something that you broke. It shouldn't have been done this way. Sincerely, shouldn't have been done this way. But as we move forward, as an engineer, right? I look at all the givens to make sure that the project is not impactful. At least every project's impactful. Every project, right? You got to choose the least amount of impact to a community and positive gain as well. And so I think we learned a good lesson from this, right? And so no, I will not allow that to happen again. I will do everything in my power to raise my voice. Leadership has to be courageous to raise its voice and say what's right and what's wrong. And you know, if you want to come to the table, let's come to the table and talk about a possible solution so there's a win-win for everyone. And so, yeah, I'm really disappointed in how this turned out, sincerely. And but Rancho Cucamonga, in my opinion, did the right thing. And so, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coker? No.
Okay. Is that yeah? Okay. So, I mean, there's a place for everything. You know, it used to be kind of clear where in the city where things were. You know, neighborhood schools, grocery stores. And then there was another part where industry would happen and businesses would be in downtown. You know, had that kind of stuff. Yeah, there definitely needs to be a plan. You can't just let them build everywhere. You know, yeah, there's a place for everything, and that should be well defined before they start coming and buying properties and building things. So that's, yeah, no, I don't think they should be next to schools or churches and like that. Everything should have a plan, and it should be conducive to, you know, industry being where it needs to be and not interfering with schools and churches and homes. So that's an easy one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Shaw.
Thank you for the question. As a proud steelworker and working with many different labor unions, I understand the importance of community benefit agreements. These should be staples in the foundations of every single development that we have here in this county. With any responsible development, we need community benefits agreements, and that ensures that the community and labor's needs are at the forefront. More oftentimes than not, projects are, they come to development and the community's needs are not met. But furthermore, we have advocates that attend meetings and address, and their concerns are not addressed. They fall on deaf ears. It is our responsibility as elected officials to carry out the will of the people. And when your people are telling you that they need something, you have to abide by their wishes. You know, it is so important that we practice coalition building. We stop working in silos, and we do all that we can to honor those who got us elected and to make sure that we are doing right by them every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Renner?
I'm really making you work. Can you please repeat the question, please?
Oh, no problem. Will you support a warehouse moratorium or general plan amendment to pause new warehouse development until a proper cumulative impact and risk assessment study has been done?
Absolutely, there has to be a pause. I'm gonna share some stats with you. 69% of Amazon warehouses nationally have been been created or built in color living neighborhoods within a mile radius of our communities. And this is nationally 69%. Here in our county, there's one built 1,500 feet away of 5 schools residential area where more than half of the people within a mile have now have low income and are mainly Hispanic as well. 90% are Hispanic. I'm Latina, that's very concerning. Whether I'm Latina or whatever, in our neighborhoods, that's very concerning. There has to be a stop. We have to also realize how many of these warehouses are really being used at this time right now. There's a lot of warehouses that are not being used. Let's do inventory. I keep saying inventory because that's what I know from business. Let's take inventory. Let's see how many warehouses that are already built are not being in use. And if they haven't been in use, and for how long and why? Why do we have to keep building warehouses when we have them? They're here, they're empty. Let's use them, let's put them to use. So that's that. And most importantly, one thing that I do wanna share with you guys tonight is that I didn't take money from special groups, no labor unions, no land developer, no large corporation for that reason, because I'm not gonna owe anybody any favors to keep building things that we don't need, that it's already here, that we can create already, because we know that there's warehouses that are empty. Let's do inventory. When you start doing research and you understand that we don't have to keep building, it's already there. And if they do want to build for whatever the reason is, let's look into it. And as a district, let's talk about it and say if it's something that we want in our district. And if so, where? But I know there's a lot of them already empty, so I think we should start by using those first. So absolutely, there should definitely be a pause immediately, in my opinion.
Thank you. Now, turning to our last topic, which will be the youth in our district. The youth are the future of our community and our nation. From houselessness to houselessness to food insecurity to lack of enriching activities, our youth are struggling and having their childhoods ripped away from them. How will you ensure the needs of our youth are being met? And what programs and activities will you advocate for so that the youth not only survive but thrive? Starting with Ms. Shaw.
Thank you for the question. My grandma often says, and a child shall lead them. Our youth are definitely our future, and the way this county is going, there won't be one for them. It pains me to see the food deserts that we have here in San Bernardino County. When we talk about equity and opportunity, what does that really look like, right? Why do you have to drive miles away to get fresh fruits and vegetables? Why? And why are these circumstances in BIPOC communities? That's important, right? We need to encourage and develop more community gardens, more farmers markets, so we have fresh food for those that live here. As a nurse, I know firsthand when people eat healthy, they are healthy, mentally and spiritually. A lot of the comorbidities, which means that people have underlying illnesses, hypertension and heart disease and all of these things, it comes from the food that we eat. And it's because more oftentimes than not in BIPOC communities, we do not have access to fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. The food that we get expires in a day or two. And why is that? What are we doing to change that? I have a beauty pageant, and I work with nonprofit organizations to enhance young women's self-esteem. For years, I have done that. It is so important that we develop programs that will allow young people to be able to harness their own strengths and abilities and to know that they can, that they are important. There are so many great organizations in this county. We need to allow for them to go into our schools so that every child has an opportunity. Furthermore, I believe that one of the greatest things that we have facing us today is that there is no financial literacy. I've had the privilege of working with the RMJ Foundation and their Bite of Reality program, which goes into schools to teach kids, and it's only in some schools in the county. I'm gonna do my best to make sure that we place it in every school in this county so all of our children have equal opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coker?
Yes. So, when I was a kid, I grew up in San Bernardino. When I was 11, I had a paper route. Maybe I had this more opportunity as a youth when I was, growing up way back then. I do 180 papers every morning. When I got to school, I guess I was lucky enough to be put in the busing program, which I got shipped from North San Bernardino down to South San Bernardino to be in a new kind of a school, if you will. It was Richardson Prep High, and it was sort of self-paced, and you kind of, a lot of responsibility to teach yourself, and it's kind of weird. But there's alternatives to what we're doing now, and I think kids are coming out of school now with like 30% are not illiterate in anything. I mean, that was the last I just heard that today. I mean, we got to be better at school for sure. There's got to be, reading, writing, arithmetic, and then on top of that, just sports need to be sports. There needs to be some value put back into winning, and not gloating about it, but winning, is better than losing, and then have some respect for the other team that they may beat you next time. But everyone gets a trophy, and this is what we've just come to. It's just where everyone's just sort of complacent, and they expect things, and it's just not the way it is. That one's working too. So it's just it's got to start in the schools for sure. We've got to. Oh, there we go. It does sound better. So anyhow, yes, I mean, definitely schools. It's got to get back to the basics, seriously, and then having other programs. There needs to be. We used to have a home ec where you learn how to balance a checkbook or cook or whatever, and those classes are gone. I took auto shop and drafting and a lot of classes that I still use today. I was a mobile mechanic for a while I was in college. Most of those classes are gone now. It's I don't know what they've been replaced with, but they're not there. So that I think would help a lot getting back to our roots. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coker. And in addition to answering the question, thank you, can you also make your closing remarks?
Yeah, I mean, I have a vision for San Bernardino County. I know there's things I don't like about it, and there's things I do like about it. There's things that can certainly be better. I have a vision for government. I think government should be small and only there when necessary. We shouldn't see it every day, and it shouldn't be there just to hinder and harass and fine you for every little thing you do. I'm from a thought where I think car registrations are kind of hokey. Every year we have to register our car. We don't register our washer and dryer every year when we buy one. Why is it your car? And why is it so much more if you buy a new car? Why is it based on price? I mean, everyone drives the same way. That's kind of like basic things that drive my political agenda is keep costs low and government small and just do the most you can with the money for the most amount of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Satina, again, you can address the youth question and then make your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. You know, on the youth issue, I would first and foremost make sure that the county has a social media program where the youth are directing it to meet to youth, youth talking to youth. And from the county perspective, I will promote more recreational programs for youth, more prevention programs for youth. I've done it, right? I've done detention ministry. I've done recreational programs for youth, training programs for youth that they can, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, how they can transition in terms of high school and community college and get going sooner. Why? Because it's all connected to promoting our community from a ready business community so we can encourage other businesses to come in. And you know, a lot of folks I've talked about after-school programs, and we need them because a lot of youth need some guidance. A lot of youth need guidance. And I'm running for supervisor not just from policy perspective, because I've worked on policy issues on water and power issues and small business issues, but I'm also running from a social perspective. Elected officials need to speak up as to social issues and address them to help the family. Policies should be written to support the family. Once you support the family, everything is getting, you're building the foundation of security for children in a society. And we've got to address this also from a business perspective as well. You know, from the youth programs, primarily it's engagement. And I will say this because electeds, like I said before, have to be courageous. I support school choice. I fully support school choice. And I support our public schools as well, but the little competition doesn't hurt anyone. There's a lot of families who are working 2 jobs to send their kids to a parochial school or a private school. And so why not? Why not have a school choice opportunity for us in other parts of the county?
Thank you.
So that was the first question, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so now going to my closing comment. My dear friends, I thank you for this opportunity, sincerely. Like I said, I've been running for 16 months. I've got this letter. It hasn't changed. And when a man puts a signature on a piece of paper, and he means it, and it's the same letter that I've been sending out for 16 months on my issues of the importance of utility for our county. We're living on borrowed time if we think that we're going to address the housing issue without water and power. And we know that we've got a limited supplies of water and power. So from a policy perspective, we have got to address that. And we've got to bring businesses into our community. And we've got to talk about the importance of small business. I've been doing that. I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce in Rancho Cucamonga. I participate in the Empire Chamber Alliance. I'm on the board of Foothill Family Shelter. I'm vice president of the Cucamonga Valley Water District. I have been doing these things, and I'm ready to serve at the next level, and I'm willing to talk about and get down with the community and work on issues, on social issues, because I've been doing that as well. And so I hope you consider my candidacy on June 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to Ms. Renner. Do you need me to re-ask the question?
Yes, please, the youth
Okay.
one.
So the question is, how will you ensure the needs of our youth are being met, and what types of programs and activities will you advocate for so that the youth not only survive but thrive?
So I'm a product of public schooling from East LA to Norwalk to all over the place. So I understand the school system very well. I also understand that parents sometimes have to work 2 jobs to provide food for the family. And sometimes these kids, school's the only meal that they're receiving, whether it's breakfast or lunch. So that's one thing that we need to look into, is how we can probably provide more food within the school system. I think that's really important. I also believe that, especially in this county, there's so many talented children here. And when I say talented, I'm not only speaking about sports. I think we go to sports too quick. The basketball player, the football player, the tennis. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about art. There's so many different talents that I was exposed to. Thank God for my parents that were able to take me to different classes, and the schools that I did attend had after-school programs, and those were so valuable. I learned so much from there. I was able to hang out with other kids that weren't necessarily in my grade, but we shared creativity. I got to visit Music Changes Lives organization here in San Bernardino. I had an interview with them, and they have a little studio for the kids, and that's good. That's creative. We need that type of stuff. I don't think that social media is necessarily an answer to this problem. I think it's actually doing creative work that we need to provide our kids with, that they should be exposed to different things. Even sewing, designing. There's so many different things. With COVID, I opened my clothing store, and 7 months in, COVID hit. My mom's a pattern maker. We were able to make masks that open so you could still drink water, but you keep your mask on. We were able to survive with our business. 7 months in, we sold those online. That was my success story. That was a problem that we didn't see coming 7 months in, and most importantly, we came up with a solution, but that came from a creativity family, a creative family that worked together to make it happen. I use that example because we could do that here. There's a lot of talent here, and not just sports. There's more than sports here. I've seen it myself. So that's the way that I would take care of the education, definitely school programs. There's a lot to do with that. For my closing statement, I want to thank everybody for being here and taking the time to come here to listen to us. I also want to share that I am so serious about this job. This is my second time running, like I mentioned at the beginning. I have signed a pledge that I will take $60,000 per year for this job and just do one term of 4 years, when there's $250,000 available to me for this position. I'm not here speaking to you tonight because I want to be empowered. I'm come here tonight because I want to create change for the people. The new leadership is my campaign, is what my campaign's about, because this is not about separating the people. This is about working together, talking to each other, when we sit and we listen, we have better solutions than when we try to separate each other. So I definitely want to make sure that I say that. I also want to share that I didn't take money from no labor unions, land developers, county lawyers, county interests, or any big corporations for that reason, because I don't plan on owing anybody any favors. I'm here for the people, for the 2nd District. And to wrap it up, for the people that are watching online, I also want to make sure that I share. Yo hablo español, lo entiendo, lo escribo. Si tienen preguntas en español, me pueden mandar un correo electrónico, pueden ir a mi website, Nadia 4, el número 4 para supervisora. Me pueden encontrar en las redes sociales. And I say that in Spanish because we also have a lot of Spanish speaking in our county. And when you're able to also talk to our community in Spanish and you have somebody that understands the language, we can create the changes that we want to see in our county. So therefore, when you see my campaign and you see the new leadership, it's about working together to build everything that I discussed today. Thank you so much for your time. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, I invite you to also come to my clothing store and we can talk and sip some water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now going back to candidate Shaw, I combined the questions after you answered the first question, and so now you can give your closing remarks.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I want to thank everyone again for taking time to come out and get to learn a little bit more about each one of us. This is what democracy looks like, right? Actively engaging and meeting the folks who are asking for you to trust them, and trust is important. And I also want to preface with saying I was the first person to announce my candidacy for this race when the voters of this county reduced the salary down to $60,000 a year, including benefits, because it's not about the money for me. So I would like to preface with that. I'd also like to make a distinction in being a very proud labor member. I'm a steel worker. My union has done so much for me in this journey, and other unions have too. I have worked with so many of them whose their only objective is to make sure that we build good paying, or that we have good paying jobs here in the county. That is it. We cannot hope for a better San Bernardino County. We have to vote for one. And June 7th, you guys have that opportunity. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our partnering organizations for collaborating on the questions. We have, as an announcement, we have COVID test kits in the back, and also voter registration forms if you need to register to vote. And now we will bring up the pastor to do our closing prayer.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bishop Ember James, and
I've been in this community since 1980. Take that back. Yeah, 1989. I've been here, maybe a little earlier than that. First of all, let me just say a couple of things. Number one, I want to thank all of you for giving us your time tonight. Over the next few days, our mailbox are going to be flooded with stuff from people that have more money to spend than these do. I'm just going to be frank and honest about this. Tonight you were able to hear the hearts of these that are running for office. One of the candidates is not here tonight. And if I was an employer and I had an interview and and the person supposed to get the interview didn't show up, I don't think they would get the job. If you love this district and you're concerned about this county, the least you could do is show up. I mean, even if you showed up and said, hey, you know what, I'd love to stay with you all tonight, but my cat just had some kittens and I got to go. But at least, and subject yourself to the scrutiny of the people that you want to vote for you. And I hope all the press is here. Bishop Emory James said it. Okay? Put it in the paper. I want to thank COPE. For organizing this opportunity for these candidates to present their views. I want to thank the partners that submitted the questions for them to answer. It gave us an insight of their ability to reason and think and their vision to come up with things. And I want to thank the partners and COPE for putting this together. And if you're online tonight and you've been watching this, I hope you take to heart the things that these candidates have said concerning your second supervisorial district. And cast your vote, not on the fact of who puts the most stuff in your mailbox, but on the fact of the people that have a heart for your district. So in closing, I want us to remember tonight, from the depths of our heart, the experience that went down in Buffalo. I don't know how we can remedy this concept of people getting angry and shooting off guns to take other people's lives, but it starts with the heart. And if we learn to pray, people say, pray. No. Sometimes, I want you to know this. If you've never heard this in your life, I want you to put this in your spirit and keep it in your forefront. Prayer changes things. Prayer changes things. So tonight, in closing closing prayer tonight, we want to remember those in Buffalo. We want to remember those in Orange County. You don't know what it's like to lose a family member or a loved one due to no fault of their own. Now that family has to go through the grief and the burying and all of that kind of stuff. And so as we close tonight, I'm going to pray, but I want you on an individual level to take time to remember these experiences that have negative experiences. And I want to pray for these candidates. And you guys are really brave, and looks like you've researched your information and you came ready to give the best presentation you could to this district. And so Pastor Sam said, Emory, you can say what you want to say, just don't talk too long. And so now I'm going to pray. Shall we just bow our heads just for a moment? Most gracious Father, we thank you because you extend to us opportunities to love and to interact with those that you have set your seal of approval on before us. Thank you for those that work untiringly to put this event together. Thank you for each one of these candidates, Lord, that studied and did the best they could to give the answers to the questions that were set before them, that we might get to know them among us. For you've said in your word, know them that labor among us. I want to thank you, Father, for placing us in a community that has a heart. I want to thank you, Father, for all that you have done to make this event what it is. And we ask now that as we depart from this place, that the spirit of this gathering will go with us and cause us to reflect on the things that are necessary to reflect that will help make our community better. And we're going to give you glory.